So, anybody have fun out there today? That was something, wasn't it? I mean, over the last few hours, I'm sure some Mizzou fans really enjoyed themselves. And hey, maybe you get to enjoy yourselves a little bit more as we run down the takeaways of today's border war. Andy Humphrey here, KTGR from the Big Show. This is the knee-jerk reactions. This used to be a column, but now it's a live video, and hope you guys enjoy it as we stream live here on YouTube. And if you're watching this back or listening to this, you've probably been celebrating quite a bit after Mizzou gets the job done in a seesaw type of game. But let's be honest, the border war shouldn't be any other way, especially the first one back in 14 years. I think you very well could have expected a game like this. The way that it went, the way it started out, maybe not all that great, but look, doesn't matter. We'll get to it. It did not matter what the score was going to be or by how much you won by. You just needed to win. That's it. Like, you can make referendums on whether you weren't good enough to sustain enough drives and that they should have won by more. And if you translate this to other opponents in the SEC, you maybe don't get the job done. Doesn't matter. And it honestly shouldn't matter just for this rivalry, because that's kind of the case in college football for everybody. You have 12 weeks where you don't play exactly the same every single week. You have up weeks, you have down weeks, and you just try to limit the downsides as much as possible for the remainder of the season. And the great teams do that more often. The not so great teams don't. And it's still early on. We don't know if Mizzou's a great team yet, but it did not matter today. Like, today, you just needed to beat the team on the other side by any means necessary. By 1 point, by half a point. It's not possible, but if that was going to be enough, that was going to be enough. And Mizzou was able a 42-31 victory over the Kansas Jayhawks. And we're ready to break it down here with the knee-jerk reactions. You can leave a comment here on our YouTube channel as we roll along. Let us know what you thought about this contest. We'll get to some of those. We'll put them up on the screen if you leave them. And, I know you're probably out there just celebrating the fact that Mizzou got a win over Kansas in the first meeting in 14 years between these two sides. It should be played every year. I think we all agree upon that. But let's get into it. I mean, this game was wild, but ultimately it was ball control that won the day. And this just bore out in the stats today. I am astounded by these discrepancies and astounded that Mizzou didn't win by more points. Now, obviously, the circumstances changed throughout the game, but look, this is just a breakdown. Like, Mizzou ran 86 plays to Kansas's 48. They held the ball 40 minutes, 27 seconds. Kansas, 19 minutes, 33 seconds. Total offense, Mizzou, 595 yards. Kansas, 254. That's more than double total offense. Pass yards, Mizzou, 334. Kansas, 223. Little more even there, but still more than 100 yards difference in favor of Mizzou. Rushing was not even a contest today. 261 for Mizzou, 31 for Kansas. Like, that's the main thing to take away from all of this. Like, Mizzou able to control the line of scrimmage in run plays much better than Kansas was. And whether Kansas just decided, look, for whatever plays that we have in our repertoire, we just need to abandon the run a little bit and just let Jalen Daniels, forgive me if I maybe slipped the tongue a few times. I've seen both quarterbacks on Mizzou's field over the last few years or so. This one decidedly went a lot better for Mizzou fans than the last one did. Either way, Kansas certainly seemed to go away from the run later in the game, so that kind of lent to that. If they were in a position where they would have liked to run the ball a little more, they probably don't finish at 31. Sack yardage also kind of factored into that. But even when you take the sacks out, Mizzou averaged 6.5 yards per carry, Kansas 3.5. Like, that's still a huge difference. And ultimately it led to Mizzou being just a tick under 7 yards a play and Kansas being at 5.5. And Mizzou ran almost twice as many more plays than Kansas. So, like, you see how all of that adds up. You're winning that game like 99% of the time. I saw, I believe Brandon Kiley, shout out, 101 ESPN in St. Louis. I think he tweeted out the fact that he's really looking forward, and I'm looking forward to Bill Connolly's win expectancy percentages, essentially, like just looking at the raw stats, how each team tabulated their offense, their defense, how plays went, success rate, things like that. And just based off of that discrepancy, how often do you expect a team to either win or lose in those situations? And like Mizzou probably wins that with those numbers 95% of the time, at least, I think. I'm not a math expert. I'll wait for Bill's algorithm to come out and see what it says there. But, I mean, this game was close because of a few things just not going Mizzou's way very early on. The lost fumble by Bo Prabula. You give up some, drives defensively where Jalen Daniels is able to carve up some zone defenses, hit some explosive plays. They hit a few over the top. And then eventually they kept going to them, but Jalen Daniels just wasn't able to complete as many of those because those are still very hard passes to have come off. So in the end, like the ball control won the day, and that comes straight to Mizzou's ability to run the football. Ahmad Hardy had 25 carries, and I believe that was definitely a requisite number for him to get to. Would have been fine with him carrying it even more times, honestly. Went for 112 yards, had a touchdown. That was the 32-yarder that he scampered in for very early on. Averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Like, that's exactly what you needed out of him. And then Jamal Roberts, man. Like, you can be surprised by the 63-yard run that he had towards the end, and surprised maybe by him taking a few more carries than maybe a lot of us expected when Mizzou goes out and gets Ahmad Hardy from the portal, and they see how tough of a runner he is and how he's so young and probably has a lot of life left on those legs. So you try to ride that horse as much as possible and just let him be your bell cow. And he probably still will be that for Mizzou eventually this season. But I said from the beginning, even before Mizzou's first game, Jamal Roberts is going to play a very key role for this team this year. There's a reason why he was listed as a co-starter on the depth chart before the season by Eli Drinkwitz at running back, because he's been with this team. He showed flashes last year, and regardless of the fact of what happened in the portal this year, Mizzou essentially lost Kewan Lacey and added Ahmad Hardy to the mix. Regardless of who that was going to be, like Jamal Roberts is going to play a good amount of snaps and get a good amount of carries. And he made the most of them today too, even without the 63-yard run. You take that out, he's got 12 carries for 80 yards. That's good. That's really good from a guy like him. So you obviously love that he had that moment towards the end, and like Mizzou had several key plays like that to ice away this game and really stay in this game. But it was a testament to how they were able to just stick with it, even when times got tough, even when they got down 15 early in the game. They didn't go away from the run. They didn't shy away from it. And especially when they lost the lead late, I believe that was in the fourth quarter, when Kansas went up by 3, drove right down the field for like a 90-plus yard drive, still didn't go away from it. Mizzou, of those 87 plays, they still ran it 47 times. Bo Prabula passed it 39 times. So you're still seeing a good balance, I think, of the amount of extra opportunities that Mizzou's offense got. They still didn't shy away from what the balance should have been in this game, and that's riding those two guys, Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts. And the offensive line did well enough. I think there were maybe a few things left to be desired from them in some areas, but look, they weren't all that noticeable today to me. And whenever you're not noticing your offensive line, that's a good thing. They obviously will see some stuff on tape that they want to clean up. But ultimately, the fact that Mizzou came in, I'm sure, wanting to control the football as much as possible, maybe limit possessions. That didn't end up happening today because, score after score, turnovers, things like that, short fields. I mean, Mizzou was still very clearly the dominant force in a lot of those offensive categories, even when Kansas started to sustain some drives themselves. Like, that's the story of the game right there. Mizzou still needed to kind of squeak it out in the end, but I'm sure they would have been even more disappointed if they had lost that game based on the fact that those numbers were where they were, just outpacing Kansas on offense 2-1, and you get to nearly 600 yards. That's pretty impressive. And then what also led to that, what led to Mizzou getting so many possessions and getting so much ball control, having so many plays, there may be in a few more third and fourth downs than they would have wanted to be, but situationally they were above average. And that's what you need to be in these types of games. 10 of 19 on third down, 4 of 5 on fourth down. There were at least a couple fourth down situations where I'm sure Mizzou fans would have wanted Eli Drinkwitz to go for it, namely the fourth and goal towards the end of the half, right as the first and goal, really. Kevin Coleman gets that 50-yard reception right at the end of the half, gets out of bounds. There's like 3 seconds left, and Mizzou fans wanted to go for the touchdown there instead of kicking the field goal, tying the game at that point. And then a 4th and 1. Mizzou wasn't quite to midfield yet, but they were up 4 and maybe had a chance to really put the clamps down in the fourth quarter, but elected to punt it away. Sure, you could go back and say, Drink needs to go for it, but he still went for it 5 times, guys, on fourth down. And Mizzou was very sound play calling wise in those situations to go 4 for 5. And then staying out of a lot of those situations, going 10 of 19 on third down. Again, you probably wouldn't want 19 third downs to deal with. But again, I think that's more of a byproduct of Mizzou's style today, maybe running the football a little bit more. It wasn't like they were in too many tough third down situations where they're behind the sticks. It was a lot of third and medium, maybe third and short. So they kept themselves in very favorable situations there, and that just allowed for them to eat up more clock, eat up more time of possession, and control the ball more, wear out Kansas's defense, and that paid dividends, obviously. And then defensively, like, you go to the other side, and Kansas was 3 of 10 on third down. So defensively, Mizzou was able to bow up in those key situations to put Kansas on the back foot and allow their offense then to operate after that. Now, Kansas still went for a couple of fourth downs and got both of them. So you maybe look at those situations that, maybe they let a couple up that they wouldn't have wanted to. That's fine. That's going to happen throughout the course of a game. I do think that Lance Leipold maybe should have gone for 1 or 2 more. And I'm trying to recall maybe the situations where Kansas would have benefited more from going for a fourth down situation instead of maybe kicking a field goal or punting it away, something like that. But I thought Mizzou's defense, while there were some leaky moments, and Jalen Daniels was good today, and Mizzou probably looks at the tape and tries to find ways to tighten things up against quarterbacks that they'll face later on in the season, like Lenore Sellers, just in a couple of weeks there. So I think there's still some things to work on, but the situational battle was also going to be key. That also comes down to turnovers too. I mean, Bo Prabula had that early turnover, but Mizzou's still able to essentially get it back with it doesn't quite go down as a turnover in the stat sheet, but you're getting points and you're getting the ball back. It was a sack fumble forced by Zion Young, and even though Mizzou didn't quite recover they still get points out of it. I kind of put it in the book as a turnover anyway, which if you do, then Mizzou wins the turnover battle today with the Dalen Carnell interception at the very end where he tightropes the sideline, makes that unbelievable dive and catch on the pick. So basically win the turnover battle. If at best it's even, and then third downs, you dominated that department against the Jayhawks. You go for several fourth downs, and Drinkwitz talked about making sure that they didn't put Robert Meyer in some too high pressure situations. And look, I think that's understandable. He's going to have to ease into this job, still a true freshman, and Maybe down the road he gets an opportunity to make a big kick. Probably wasn't going to happen today. So we'll see if he gets that chance down the line. But Mizzou was aggressive today. You could even argue that they could have been even more aggressive. But I think if you're criticizing Eli Drinkwitz after that, like, look at how many times he went for it and how successful it was. Like, Mizzou made the right decisions. And ultimately, the final score was the final score. So they won the situational battle, no doubt about that. Here on the Knee Jerk Reactions on our YouTube channel, KTGR Sports. Hope you give us a subscribe and a like and a comment as well. We'll put the comments up if you leave them here. Let's go to this one. Bo Pribula edged out Jalen Daniels. I thought both of them were very good. I mean, you look at Jalen Daniels, and I thought the game plan that Mizzou should have had against him, and I think they followed it. Don't let him out. Don't let him beat you with his legs, because then you're just kind of asking for trouble. You're asking for the uncertainty later in the game of, is he going to run it? Is he going to pass it? Mizzou was very well disciplined in their pass lanes, almost too disciplined at times, because it made for maybe a cleaner pocket for Jalen Daniels in some situations than Mizzou maybe would have liked, but maybe they were just a little too concerned with heading after him, missing, and then he gets free off the edge, and now he's running for space for a few minutes. But look, I thought the plan was to just let him beat you over the top, and just that's the way that you at least limit the damage. You limit a lot of the explosive plays for this game. Well, it turns out Jalen Daniels knows how to make explosive plays with his arm too. He passed it very well today, 18 of 30, 223 yards, had two touchdowns, and, of course, that late interception where he's just trying to make a play. He's trying to throw it away, honestly, and Kansas is down 11 at that point. Like, you don't really necessarily count stats towards that point anyway when the game is basically in hand. But he played well, I think, overall. Bo Pribula, though, played a little bit better, and that's what ultimately gave Mizzou more of an edge. I was kind of surprised by how much Bo Pribula threw in this game. 30 of 39. I'm sure that he has not thrown 39 passes in a game since high school, and maybe not even that much when he was playing at that level, because I'm sure he was a tough runner at the high school level himself. I'd be interested to see if he's ever reached that pass attempt number in his life. But still was a very efficient passer at that. 77% completion percentage, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, did lose the fumble. Wasn't perfect today. There were a few moments where, like, I thought his decision-making on when to tuck in and run, when to throw it away, when to scramble was very sound, save for maybe one or two moments where he ran into one sack. He, on a fourth down, the only fourth down that Mizzou missed today, it was first drive of the second half. Thought maybe Bo could have run for first down if he had looked to his left and saw some running. Either way, like, it all gets outweighed by the fact that he was the quarterback that Mizzou needed today. He made the right throws. His receivers made some excellent plays. We will acknowledge that in a bit. But he was the guy that's Mizzou trusted for this position, and it was the right call. He was poised, save for that one mistake where he lost the fumble, and he owned up to it after the game. Made every right decision, made some excellent throws. I recall one where he dropped it into the bucket to Daniel Blood. I believe that was a late third quarter pass there on the drive that Mizzou eventually took the lead on. And like you knew that Mizzou had a special player when he started to do what he did against Central Arkansas. You wanted to see what it looked like with a step up in competition. And this is what it looks like. There will be more steps up. We'll wait to see what that looks like. Again, still some work to do for Bo Pribula on how that could look for those games, but the exact quarterback that they needed today. That's all that matters. Like, you beat Kansas, and you did it with in shootout fashion. Quarterback deserves a lot of credit for that. run game was what you built upon foundationally, but it allowed Bo Prabula to have the openings for the throws, and he made most every play. Now, there was a reason why he had such a great completion percentage. Like, he allowed his receivers to make some plays too, and boy, did they. I mean, let's start with Kevin Coleman. 10 catches, 126 yards, a touchdown, targeted 12 times. He had 62 yards after the catch. So the air yards and the yards after the catch were pretty even there, but clearly you've known Kevin Coleman to be, even for his days at other colleges, this is his first year at Mizzou, but knew exactly what kind of explosive playmaker he could be. Showed that by essentially putting them deep into field goal range towards the end of the half, making Eli Drinkwitz, I'm sure, think about going forward to get a touchdown to take the lead. Ultimately, he went for the tie, got the 3 points, and it paid off. Mizzou got more points than Kansas today. But I really think that his most important catches, he had so many, like a fourth down catch with basically a guy hitting him at the exact same time. That was his last catch of the game. The 10th one was a 4th and 7 play, and Mizzou needed it. I believe they were down at that point, and like up against it, you were kind of looking back at, well, you're at 4th and 7. Yeah, you're in plus territory. But I was kind of thinking, man, now that 4th and 1 that they passed up on earlier looms a little more large because that's a little more gettable. Now you're at 4th and 7, and you got to find somebody in the passing game that can make a play. Well, several guys could today, and they turned to Coleman, and he delivered. So that was his last catch, and probably the most important. But I look back on his first catch of the game and see it with just as much importance. It was a little more subtle, but at that point, Mizzou was down 21-6. And they hadn't had a first down in a while. Like, they had the turnover by Prabula. They had a 3-and-out right after that. And I believe about 8 minutes of game time elapsed before their next first down. And Kevin Coleman made the catch for it. And he got 20 yards. He got some yards after the catch. That was finally something that the Mizzou crowd, they had been taken out of the game in the middle part of the first quarter. But Coleman gave them a little bit of something to cheer about. And even if it was the slightest jolt, wasn't a huge chunk play, but it was still an explosive play. It counts, 20-yard catch. I thought that was largely important to just kick Mizzou's offense back into gear and say, hey, you got playmakers, let them do their job. And Kevin Coleman's catch right after that, they're able to get the run game going again. They were able to keep Kansas's defensive line off balance with some hard counts. There were several free plays after that, directly after that catch, that Mizzou was able to take advantage of, get some first down throws from Prabula to some other guys. So I kind of look back at that catch as a very key turning point, as subtle as it might have been for Mizzou's offense, that Kevin Coleman made. His first catch of the game for 20 yards on Mizzou's, what was that, their 4th possession of the game, to essentially get them to midfield, move the chains for the first time in a while, and say, okay, we've got this. So that was largely important. Kevin Coleman, career day today, and honestly a career day for Brett Northley too. This was very much his game at the same time. I think we've been waiting for this for the last couple of years or so. The only game that I think Northfleet has had like this was maybe 2 years ago against Arkansas, when he scored 2 touchdowns in like a matter of 15 seconds or something like that because of a turnover deep in the red zone, and Mizzou just goes straight back to him for another touchdown catch. And he didn't have a ton of yardage that day, but 2 touchdowns, that's a day to remember. 2 more touchdowns today, 7 catches for 76 yards. And he was a weapon. He was a factor. He was a threat. And that, I think, is what we've been waiting for. Maybe last year didn't quite happen because he was dealing with injury for most of the season. He was still playing a lot of games, but don't know how much Mizzou would have been able to comfortably use him because maybe he was playing under 100% for a lot of the season, but feeling good this year. And look, when he is playing like that, Mizzou's offense is different. Like, you add another layer to it. When he can split out in the flat, you can roll guys out. Linebackers maybe lose him in coverage, and then you can throw it to him and let him roam for 10, 15 yards and let him hurdle a guy. Like, that could be another layer unlocked that Mizzou has maybe been waiting for from Brett Norfleet maybe the last year or so. Like, a true freshman in a couple years back, still waiting for him to blossom, but he made the freshman All-American team, and so had obviously a lot of hype coming into the last couple of seasons. Now, after this game, if he's starting to become this type of pass catcher as a tight end for Mizzou's offense, there can be some new heights reached. And we saw the first real glimpse of that from Brett Norfleet today. And again, coming up big on some key third and fourth downs. He scored on a third down play and a fourth down play afternoon. So just being readily available and a reliable target for your quarterback is what I'm sure they were asking Brett Norfleet to be over the last couple of years. And now if he's finally able to do that, then Mizzou can really start to climb up some offensive ranks here. And I mean, just it wasn't just those guys. Daniel Blood made some good catches. Xavier Lloyd, Marquise Johnson. But, man, we got to talk about Donovan Olubade. I mean, he made the first catch that a wide receiver made in this game for Mizzou, and I thought that was notable very early on. But Mizzou's, like, up against it at the end of the first quarter. They've got a 4th and 10. They're down 21-6, and they got to have it. They're in a spot where you maybe don't trust Robert Meyer to kick it. I think it would have been a 48-yard attempt. How much it would have done, honestly, also very questionable at that moment because you're still down 2 scores no matter what. So needed somebody to make a play on a 4th and 10, and Olubade's between a couple of DBs for Kansas, and I have absolutely no clue how he hauled it in with one hand along the sideline. I think got a couple of feet down and made the grab in a huge spot for a first down. For a true freshman to do that in the biggest game, I'm sure, of his life, the magnitude of this one, that's next level, man. And I can't wait to see how much more of Donovan Olubade Mizzou's staff tries to unlock this season. You don't have to wait. Like, you know he can play at this level right now. He just did it in a Power 4 game. The stat line, not huge, obviously. 3 catches, 29 yards. But, like, that catch is proof of the type of receiver he can be for you going forward. And, man, that could be something that Mizzou greatly benefits from. So, an unbelievable catch to save Mizzou's drive in a drive where they needed to have it. They finished that off with the Kevin Coleman touchdown on another 4th down play. Mind you, on 4th and short, they were inside the 5-yard line, and a great play call to get it done. So, like, all in all, the pass catchers today were a huge part of why Mizzou stayed in this game and were able to ultimately win it. And look, to close this out, like, guys, they won. Who cares by how much? There's probably not a lot of people doing this right now. I saw a little bit of it during the game of like, man, if we're doing this against Kansas, what's going to happen against South Carolina or Alabama or on the road against anybody? Who cares, man? Like, 1-point win feels like 20 in this rivalry. Does not matter how much you won by. We talked on the Big Show Hall this week. Only words you need are Mizzou money line. Now they got the cover as well. Shout out Jamal Roberts for that. In your jurisdiction of legality, of course. But this is the first one back in 14 years. It was just gonna mean a little bit more because it was going to feel a little bit better than it usually does in this rivalry for the winner, and a little bit worse for the loser. Like, the discrepancy is just that much wider based on the fact they hadn't played this game in a while for lots of reasons that we've gone on and on about. We don't have to rehash them here. But even if this was a 2-point win, I would not be worried all that much about what that means for how Mizzou can do against South Carolina. It wasn't really going to decide whether or not they could win or lose that game based on how much they won here. Now, it can inform you about where their team is at, where their offense and defense are performing at, how efficient they are. They'll probably go back and say, yeah, we still need to be a little bit better. We got some excellent numbers today. We dominated them at in the time of possession battle, in the total offense battle, in the ball control battle. And still, it was in the balance in the final couple of minutes, in that last touchdown by Roberts made it a double-digit win. But even if he had gone out of bounds at the 50, Mizzou still wins, and it feels the same way. Like, you just needed to get a dub in this game, and they did it, and that's all that matters. So that's what you feel good about. You obviously go back and work on the things that could have been a little bit better, but you worry about South Carolina when South Carolina gets here. You worry about Alabama when that game gets here in mid-October, whenever it is. You worry about going on the road when you worry about going on the road. When that time comes, you just have to worry about the team that is in front of you at any given point. And again, the way I started out here is that you're going to have probably 12 different grades of how you play each and every game. If you play the first game at 85% and you just translate 85, 85, 85 across the whole schedule, and whatever that means for the type of opponent that you're playing means either win or loss. So your 85 game every single time, it's not going to be played. Sometimes you'll have 95. Sometimes you'll have 75. And you just hope that the 75s come against the opponents that are not able to take as well advantage of that throughout the course of the season. And you hope the 95s are against, Bama and on the road against Oklahoma, or whatever you call the toughest game on the schedule. There could be some different conversations about that, I'm sure, at this point, even 2 weeks in. You just need to be 1% better than the other team on the other side, just every single week. And so Mizzou was that today. And because of that, you get to brag all year long to those Kansas fans. That's going to be fun. I'm sure it is. Can't wait for Monday's big show. Shout out Brendan if you're out there anywhere. I hope you're safe and enjoying this whole thing. But that was a heck of a football game. And again, just to have that be the first version of this rivalry being back, that back and forth affair, craziness with the safety, with the long 50-yard reception by Coleman to give them a chance at the half, maybe to go for it, even though they didn't. The Jamal Roberts scamper towards the end, all the explosive plays on the Kansas side, the scoop and score, even the bad parts of what Mizzou did today just lend to the fact that this is what this rivalry has been. Even some referee stuff, like Big 12 refs, I think gave Kansas a few extra points today. Doesn't matter. Mizzou still won by 11. It's all fun and games, right? No, it's not. It's Mizzou, Kansas. You hate the other guys. Come on. Let's be real here. But thanks for joining us. Again, leave some comments here underneath. Tell us what you thought. And be sure to join us on what should be a very fun and interesting big show on Monday at 4 o'clock on KTGR and the free KTGR app. You can download it now. You can find this podcast on the KTGR app if you missed it as well. Also on our Apple and Spotify channels You can, again, go to YouTube to watch it back. And if you missed any of the big show, you can listen to that. We also stream the big show live right here on YouTube, so you can catch it here if this is where you're watching. But yeah, that was fun, and we'll see what that happens. They should beat Louisiana next week. Like, it's an afterthought at this point. You celebrate this one. You do make sure you turn the page. Take care of Louisiana. Maybe a little bit trappy. People have called it that heading into this season because it's sandwiched in between this game and the South Carolina game. Like, yeah, you got to take care of business there. But this was a fun one to take in. I definitely loved my perspective of it from where I was up here, and hope you enjoyed it as well. And thanks for listening and watching the Knee Jerk Reactions here on KTGR.